Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of our podcast. In this special episode, we had the amazing opportunity to interview Nerrin Bamanie while we're fasting. Oh yeah, we were fasting, but still we managed to do it. We dove into some fascinating topics like radio, writing, education, language learning, and even Saudi Vision 2030. Trust me, this episode is packed with insightful conversations. Get ready to be inspired and informed. We have a very renowned host in the radio industry, Nerrin Bamanie. Thank you for making the time to chat with us today. It's always nice to have people who are heavily invested in the media industry and radio in particular. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for asking me and for having me here. It's a pleasure.
I don't know if you're familiar with our podcast or not. We actually don't normally do interviews, but the first person, our top pick for our first guest was you because there's no anyone else, I can think of other than having you, because I wanted to have you before, and I told you that in my previous podcast, but I had to call it off. And now, alhamdulillah, it's happening. So I want to ask you about how you got into radio, but I have a first question that I really would love to have the answer to. What makes a good radio host? Like, what's the benchmark for a good radio host? Like, I'm sure that sometimes, you tune into a radio channel and then you listen to a host and then you say, oh, that's a good host. But then you come across another one and you go like, not so good. Like, what's the benchmark?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there could be like two answers to this, actually. A good radio host in general has to be interesting, has to be able to communicate and speak well and clearly, and not run on and on, for example. Know his topic, be engaging, like someone you enjoy listening to. But also the topic is important. So if you end up listening to someone on the radio and he's speaking well and he's talking, in a style that is interesting, but you're just not interested in the subject, you're bored, then that wasn't for you. So the host wasn't, the presenter may be okay. He's a good one. It's just the topic wasn't for you. So you might judge this person as not being good enough, where in fact they are good. They're just, the topic's not for you. It's like advertising. Advertisements are not always for the right people. You look at something and you say, oh, I'm not interested at all. That's because you were not the target audience.
You have to know your audience.
Yes.
The host has to know their audience. Very good.
Yes.
You just answered the question. Okay, so
yeah, I did. No, actually, you answered.
No, you answered.
You simplified it. You said it in a few words.
Yeah,
it was good.
So to get you hooked, to get you entertained, that's what a good host is. That's the bottom line.
True. In the end, we are entertainers. Yes.
Picture this. I'm stuck in traffic. Got about 20 minutes to get to work.
Yeah.
Sit in my car. I'm like, okay, let's turn on the radio. What do I hear? Good Morning KSA streaming through the speakers. That big smile just lights up my face because I know it's going to be refreshing and beneficial. Now, Nerrin, my question is, what led you to radio? How did you get into it? What's your story?
I never thought of radio in the first place. I always wanted to be like a journalist. I wanted to be, a writer, because I like writing and I like reading. But in order to become a writer, you have to be a person who can walk up to people and ask questions. Right. And I was shy, so that didn't work. And a friend of mine, she took me to the radio because she was working there. She was working radio and TV. She's an older relative. And she took me there, and I felt really comfortable behind the mic because there was no one there except one sound engineer and no one else. So I felt free. I felt liberated. I didn't feel the self-consciousness that I would have felt if people were looking at me, at my face, and listening to me ask questions or something. So I loved it. Since then, I haven't looked back. Radio is the best thing ever.
You talked about writing. This is really great, and I want to comment. But first, you talked about writing, which actually, I was still studying, doing my BA. I got introduced to writing because I was fond of writing, but somebody discouraged me to write. But then I got my love for writing was rekindled through this teacher. He taught me. He just made me like, you can express yourself through words. And so what kind of writings do you write?
Yes. Well, apart from doing the program, in other words, yes. Okay, so let's take the program first. For example, when I do Good Morning KSA, I pick and choose which news items I'm going to put, and then I pick a topic.
Mm.
The news items, I don't take them verbatim from the sources. I have to simplify it, change it, shorten it to make it in small sound bites so that listeners don't get bored. Because as you know, the written word, if you write a full sentence and you're writing something in a journal or a newspaper, you can have like a long paragraph with
Right.
commas here and there and whatever, and henceforth and therefore and whatever. But when you're speaking on radio, it has to be short and keeping the person's attention on you because you have nothing except your voice. And so I do that kind of I'm kind of editing in a way. And for me, it feels like I'm rewriting.
Mm.
And if I'm talking about a topic, I ask the listeners a topic question. I have my own ideas, my own opinions, that kind of thing. I go around asking other people around me their opinions, write it down. That's for the work, for the job. On a personal note, I like writing short stories. I like
Mm.
writing my thoughts down. If I have a big important issue that I'm worried about or thinking about, and it's causing me stress and anxiety, and it's just a lot of words in my head and ideas going round and round, circling, getting nowhere, I write it down. I write down everything I'm feeling, what I'm afraid of, what are the consequences, what should I prepare for, and then it just kind of simplifies my life.
Right. Writing
Um,
is your window.
Yes, yes. When I was younger, before the internet, um, I used to write letters to my friends, and I would write letters that are 6 pages long, front and back. And it's like, wow, I loved it. I love writing. So it's nice.
Right. Of course, now it's made it's easier now, to write down your thoughts, with the applications now, and even now with the new update iPhone got,
Yeah,
there is this journal, and it gives you a reminder every single day, like you can write what
nice.
happened through your day, and yeah, for people who have no experience with writing, or maybe they're reluctant to, should we write or not, because maybe
Yeah,
we have nothing to do. Well, you can start just, with your day, like how your day went. That's a start.
that's true. That's true. Apps are helpful that way. For me personally, I like writing with a pen, pen on paper.
Oh, right.
And I read something recently, which is going to be mentioned in one of my Good Morning KSA episodes, that putting pen on paper and writing is actually better cognitively for your brain's health than
Mm,
typing.
wow.
Yeah,
I never knew
because you're
that.
kind of multitasking.
Right.
You're
Because
shaping the letters.
yeah,
Yeah, you're doing something
I think
physical
I'm
as
with
well as
you.
cognitive.
I'm with you in
Yeah.
that, because the sounds of the keyboard sometimes it annoys you, like tick tick tick, it's so probably,
Yeah. And the
writing.
and the letters are there. You don't need to shape them. Whereas if you're writing by hand, you are shaping the letters physically as at the same time as you're thinking what the word is. So you're using two parts of your brain, whereas when you're just typing, you know where the letters are automatically and you're just thinking. You're not physically shaping a letter by hand as if you're drawing, you know?
That's intriguing. Now this
I know. I
now
read it and I'm like, yes.
Now I have another one. This is a follow-up question, because
Uh-huh.
this one thing leads to another, and as we have this conversation.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, now you started writing because like you found yourself in writing, but
Yeah.
like maybe, for someone else, maybe they found their selves in writing because they read, like, say they read
Yes.
novels, and they read books, and then they're like, okay, I can do this, and they imitate
Yes, yes.
the authors they love, and that's how they got into writing. Was it the case? Was it
That
the
is
case for
exactly
you?
it. You're absolutely right. That is very it. I neglected to mention the beginning. Yes, it's
Mm,
reading that starts it. Reading starts everything.
mm,
So yeah, I started reading because I didn't study in Saudi Arabia. I studied grade four. That's when I first learned English, and I
oh,
was in Canada. And
mm.
their education system was way different than ours here, of course, in those days. And so you would get a novel, you would get stories. You have to read a book in the summer and come back and analyze it and talk about it, give a talk. So it was incredible. I mean, there's like exciting stories out there. And I just kept on reading, reading, reading. And then you just learn vocabulary. You learn how to put sentences together, how to make a phrase sound more exciting or more eye-catching. And it's just the perfect thing for learning how to write and speak, to read. It's great.
It is great. You talked about the
So,
curriculums, the different curriculums of yeah, yeah,
yeah.
go on.
No, I was going to ask you, you like reading?
I do like reading. It's
Mhm.
I've been reading on and off, but most of the times I actually like to read the newspapers.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe magazines. But reading books, self-help books in particular, like before I used to do this a lot, but now not so
Mhm.
much, especially with summaries, summary apps. I hate those
Yeah.
because now I actually don't read anymore because, if you want to get the gist of a book, you can just, read the summary and there you go, you have it. But definitely this
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you shouldn't read. But novels, not so much. I only read two novels in my life. I love
Mhm.
them, but I don't think that I'm ever going to read novels because I think it's not
Oh,
me. I don't know why.
yeah. No, I understand.
So it's a
I
me
haven't read a
problem.
book in ages.
Mm,
Yeah. It's the internet. It's those smartphones. It's your iPads. It's your MacBooks. That's what it is.
it is.
We don't have the attention span of before.
Oh yeah,
Everything's
TikTok
instantaneous, and a
and
book takes
mm,
forever.
it is.
So,
I agree with you.
yeah,
Actually, this is what I did. I
sad.
right now I deleted apps like TikTok, YouTube because YouTube has shorts and
Hmm.
you cannot block them. And Snapchat
Yeah.
has this spotlight, and so I'm gonna, what do you call them? Like free myself.
Detoxify. A
Exactly, that's the
digital
one.
detox. Digital
Exactly, that's the one. Yeah.
detox.
So it's
Yeah.
I'm trying to free myself from them. And it's like they say that if you just do a habit, like if you want to make anything a habit, just do it 21 days,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
planning on.
True.
You talked
Yeah.
about the different curriculums of Saudi Arabia and Canada. How different are they?
Oh no. Well, I have kids, of course, and they're all grown up now. But when they were younger,
Mm,
and I had to like help them with their homework and stuff.
mm.
Everything was just memorization. They didn't have to understand anything, you know? And now it's all changing, and I'm really happy with the changes that are coming about and welcoming it. I mean, they've added so much interesting stuff into the curriculums like space and art and all of that. It's wonderful. It's just going to make every young mind just blossom. And all the geniuses that are out there are going to have and live their potential. And that's what's great about it, that it's changing now. So the curriculum of before was shocking to me because it was just memorization, and you had no chance to imagine anything. Whereas the outside curriculums where I studied, luckily I studied, it helps your mind just create and be anything. And every answer, if you have a logical proof or evidence, or you write it in the correct way with the right style and the right information, is correct. There is no wrong if it's an opinion, especially if it's in literature or the humanities. If you can back up your argument, your way, your style, your mind, your logic, it's fine. It's right. It's not the teacher gave me the answer and I have to memorize it and spout it out the same way, exactly word for word. No. So that's what was lovely about that.
Well, I'm glad that it's changing, and you're right. I'm glad that it's
Yes.
going in the right direction.
Yeah. Hmm.
You talked about teaching, and I'm a teacher myself, and
Yeah. Mm.
um, teaching is really difficult. It's not
Oh.
easy at
What do you
all.
teach? What do you teach?
I teach college students. I teach English, and
Mashallah, good.
yeah,
Okay.
what's hard in it is because I'm teaching students that their English background is zero, and
Mm.
so you have to start from scratch, and you reach week 6, and still you see no results because you're teaching maybe 41 students at a time, and that's so hard. Like you can't
Yeah.
absorb all that. I don't know if you're familiar with this term, native speakerism. Um,
Yeah.
as a teacher, I've been guilty of this, especially in my first teaching years. I was so rigid in getting the right pronunciation of words. I wanted my students, to get the right words, and if they have a if they make a pronunciation error, I would correct them over and over and over. The result was the
Mm.
same. They didn't really change anything. So I knew that my way was bad, and I had to alter my teaching ways. And I just, figured out that to each their own, and that everyone, I believe that everyone is unique with their own voices and their own way of speaking. Having said
Hmm.
that, I haven't completely abandoned this belief. I mean, when I'm listening to a radio station, definitely the first thing that grabs my attention is someone's way of speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I got two questions. The first one might be a
Okay.
little controversial depending on how you answer it. Like, do you think
Hmm.
that to get a job or have a podcast, you should have a particular English accent? Also, question number two, for those people wishing to improve their way of speaking, do you have any tips for them?
Okay. For the first question, depends on the job. what the job requires, then you know which kind of pronunciation is necessary. For us, for example, on in Saudi Arabia, the requirement now is like fluency with hardly an accent. They don't want accents at all. Different jobs require different measures, I guess. Wait, I forgot the question now. You asked for a job and the other one for a podcast. Okay,
Right.
podcast. No, I think in a podcast you're free to do what you want. That's you're your own boss. So you make your own limits, your own rules, regulations. That's up to you. Podcast is free.
So do you think that
That's what I'm saying.
podcast now is the new radio?
Probably, yeah,
Do,
probably.
do you
But to
tune
be
into
honest,
any podcasts?
no, because I talk all day. I talk all day and I hear things
I
all day and I'm listening all day. So I just, that's it. When I go home, I'm just shutting down everything.
gotcha.
Maybe
Uh,
after, when I retire, I'll turn to podcasts.
I see. Well, yeah, would love to have you in the podcast world. I'm sure that you will have your own mark, like make your own mark in podcasting because just like you did
Inshallah.
in radio. Yeah. So my
Inshallah.
second question was about people who wishing to improve
Tips.
their do you have any tips for
Yeah.
them? Like they want to improve their speaking. Like mashallah,
Yeah.
you speak very well. And you said that you how many years did you spend in Canada?
I was lucky. It's like I started from grade four, so I was around what, 10, 11,
Mm.
and I just studied in English for the rest of my educational history until I finished university. I was lucky in that. So I was in Canada, I was in Belgium, I went to international schools, I went to American universities. Even when I came here for a short period of time, I went to an international school because I did not know Arabic, to my
Oh.
dad's embarrassment. Yeah, I relearned Arabic later,
Mm.
but the English felt like it's my native tongue because it's what I learned to speak in very fluently and what I enjoyed reading in. So it became my number one. Now, a bit of personal history. My mom is originally Turkish.
Hmm.
So when I was very young, she would speak to me, my sister and I, only in Turkish, and my dad would speak in
Oh.
Arabic. But of course, mother tongue wins. It was always Turkish, and so I lost a little bit of the Turkish fluency
Mm.
as I studied English, and then came back here, had kids, and all that, and I lost it a bit. What brought it back was listening to Turkish radio stations. So radio played a really important role. All I did was listen in the car while driving to work or driving my kids here or something. Just listen to live radio shows and commercials and people talking, telling the news and then I bumped into this Turkish girl at work,
Hmm.
and I've met her before. I would speak in a very stilted Turkish accent, and I
Oh.
don't know vocabulary or styles. And then suddenly I met her after a few months of listening to this radio, and she was like, "Mashallah, what happened to you? Mashallah, your Turkish is amazing." I was just speaking much more fluently, whereas I hadn't practiced with anyone. It was
Because you
just
were
listening.
exposed to listening.
Yes. So
Okay.
radio is really important. Anyone who wants to improve the way they speak, they should watch a lot of English movies. They should listen to a lot of English channels and radio stations, podcasts. Just immerse themselves in English all the time. And that will also help with the accent eventually. It starts with the vocabulary and the way you put your words together and the phrases, and then it gets to the accent eventually.
I think that's
So that's what.
just
Mm,
like how kids learn a language, they first
mm,
expose themselves to
yes.
listening. Of course, you don't expect them
Yeah.
to write or read first. You expect them to
Yeah.
spout words. And how do they spout words? They listen first, and
Yeah.
that's how you do it. So my experience with English was so different. I actually
Mm.
attained the English language first through reading and writing, but then when I was trying to speak, I could not. Even listening was so bad. I still improved them because someone recommended what you recommended, tuning into
Mhm.
radio and watching movies, and I did that. Yeah, I saw wonders.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 it
Mhm.
helps. It helps a lot. Like another example is when I was living in Belgium, and I would flick through the TV channels, cable, and I would hear German, and I would hear French, and I would hear Flemish, which is a language in Belgium, and I would hear Dutch, which is from the Netherlands, and I
Okay.
could
That just
eventually
tells
learn
us
to.
that just tells us that you're a polyglot. How many languages do you
I don't
speak?
speak them. No, no, I don't speak them. I studied a little bit of German, but I don't, and a little bit of French, but I've forgotten most of it. But what I want to
So what
say
you
is
got
I
in your
heard
language
these,
arsenal? Like how many
yeah,
languages?
yeah, this is the languages I heard, and I could differentiate
Mm,
just hearing the accents. I knew what language it was, just because I was hearing it. But
okay.
now that I'm not exposed to it anymore, I can't tell the difference anymore between German and Dutch and Flemish, for example, because they're very similar to each other.
But
So
I don't know,
listening
like
is amazing.
oh, Belgium. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh
Sorry for
yeah, no, no, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands, three
Germany
different
as well.
countries,
Yeah.
and they speak all these
Right.
amazing languages. And it was just really, it's the hearing you because you're doing it passively. You're not, actively seeking out a word here and there. You're just listening passively, and your brain does all the work. It's amazing.
Right. I know that you're a cat person and you have
Oh
six
yes.
rescue cats. And yeah, there's something that's something I could never do because I actually
Mm.
maybe listeners don't know this. I petted a cat before, and the way I was introduced to this cat, she would greet me every single time I came back from work. And then I took her in. I got her everything, but 2 weeks later I couldn't do it. I had to abandon her. So I only petted her for 2 weeks, but I couldn't take it anymore. So now you have six rescue cats. So I actually don't know how you manage that. I believe it's a
Um,
difficult job.
it's a commitment. It's a commitment.
Mm,
You I first because my daughter rescued our first cat off the street, and she was supposed to keep her only temporarily until she found a home for her.
hmm
She had a missing eye problem,
mm.
and then we just fell in love with her, so she stayed. And then my second daughter found another kitten
Oh,
and then rescued that one, and we just couldn't give it up. We didn't find another home for it, and we fell in love with it, and he stayed. And then when each of my kids traveled, they took the cats with them. Each one took her own cat. And so I was left with nothing. So I adopted two cats to keep each other company. And then I rescued the third one. And these adoptions are from rescue shelters. The
wow.
third one I found on the street. The fourth one I found on Medina Road. The fifth one, he was a kitten in the garden, and he was just sick. All his siblings had died. And I took him in, and the vet said, okay, he has to stay indoors and take these medicines for 5 days. And that was it. I fell in love. So I couldn't give him up. And the sixth one, oh, my poor angel. She's my favorite because she's the most needy. She's one of those furry, beautiful cats that I found while out on a walk. And she just looked like she gave up on life. And I wanted her to live so badly. And I wanted to shower her with love and make up for all the misery she suffered because some idiot threw her out in the street
Oh,
when she wasn't prepared to live in the street.
that's
And
cruel.
so that's the six I have. But I believe that when you adopt a cat or a dog or a bird or anything, it's a commitment for the rest of their life. They're like your kids now. And you can't just get fed up with your kid and say, I can't handle this anymore and give them up. So you can't do the same.
Right.
You can't. You
Right.
can't do that to your pets either. That's it.
I believe that you're
That's my belief.
against purchasing cats.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And
Yes. There's no
unfortunately, a lot of
need.
people do that. I mean, I entered the shop about a year ago, and the animals in there, like you can
Yeah.
see the sadness in their eyes, like they're bored to death. And I wanted to free them, but I knew that even if you bought them all, like they would just get new ones. So
Yeah.
there's no
Exactly.
solution
It's
to this.
in some countries in the West they've banned selling of animals except purebreds, and you have to get a license to have a purebred and breed them.
Mm,
But everyone else, you have to spay and neuter your pet. That's a policy. And plus, they don't sell animals anymore. But they have shelters where you can go and adopt and pay a nominal fee, like 50 reals or something that's equivalent to that. We don't need to buy animals. The problem is people, when I see people going into a pet store and they have their children with them, and oh, you want a little white kitten? Oh, isn't that cute? It must be white. It must be different. It must be unique. Oh, that one's ugly. I don't want that one. It's like you're not buying a dress, you're buying a soul. You're buying a living, feeling soul. It's a
mm,
life. And so I really, really disapprove of that because they buy them and they know nothing about how to take care of it. And the kitten is the most needy and most easily stressed, and you can't tame a kitten. Um, and then they get fed up when it's grown up, and there's it's just too many sad stories out there. So
I
I'd
know,
rather
and
people
also
just adopt
there's
the
another
ones on the
problem.
street.
There's another
Mm,
problem. There's the rarity of the of rescue organizations. Like before, I wanted
yeah,
now if you go to some beaches, like in the case of Jeddah, I'm sure it's way better than here. I tried to film a video and send it on Twitter. I did actually, and tagged people responsible for this. And I reached
yeah,
out to rescue organizations, and there are many, I think, in Jeddah and Riyadh. But they
yeah.
said they could not take them in because I was far away. So unfortunately, but I hopefully in the future this thing will be
Solved somehow.
right.
Yes,
I
yes.
hope so.
And
Hopefully,
most of these rescue shelters and they're just individual people. They give themselves organizational names. Most of them are just people, individuals doing their bit, doing what they can, and they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. I mean, every day I'm driving to work and driving back, or I'm going to the store or something very sad, very heartbreaking. It's just every day. It's continuous and it's heartbreaking. And sometimes you just don't want to see anything anymore. You don't want to deal with it anymore. You can't. You go beyond your limit of being able to accept the hits and the pain, and that's it. But what is heartening, what is nice, what I see now is a lot more people are feeding cats and leaving bowls of water outside everywhere. And that encourages me to think that yes, there will be a solution soon, inshallah.
inshallah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Good morning, KSA. How do you
Okay.
keep your content fresh and engaging for your audience?
Oh, it's very hard, man. Very hard.
Because I
Sometimes
can
I
see
even
that
ask,
every single day, I think you have a new topic, and
yes.
yeah, it's I believe that there's behind the scene that we don't see. I'm sure there's a lot of commitment, like you said. So can you tell us
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. Sometimes I even ask my fans, please send me your topics. Send me topic ideas you want me to talk about because I run out. Or my sound engineer gives me a few topics like, oh, I have a topic for you, and he tells me something. And so I think about it and I try to make it fit. Sometimes the question comes from something in my life, like something that happened with relatives or something I saw on the road or something I read in the news. And I'm asking, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? So it's very hard. It's very hard. And I do have dry spells where I can't think of anything. So I'll go back to my old episodes and recycle topics because, they don't end. You can
Right.
ask the same question every couple of months and you'll get different answers from different people. So it's just endless in a way. It's just on and on. It's really nice.
I see. How do you see the future of radio aligning with the Saudi Arabia 2030 vision?
Well, I think it fits with Vision 2030. I mean, it tells you what's happening
I mean, is there a
all the
plan?
time. There must be a plan. I think it's being applied in the Arab radio and the Arab TV kind of before the English and the other languages. We have other languages also. It's coming eventually to English radio stations. I mean, we have Aramco, we have other English radio stations popping up.
Hmm.
But as being directed for Vision 2030, we get directives, we get guidance on what events to cover, what things to say, what reports to cover, and we do our best as individual presenters to add local news, local flavor when there's something happening in the country, in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah. We talk about it, we highlight it, we try as much as we can, but our numbers are limited mainly because the budget is limited. But I think there are future plans to improve all of that. But radio is very important. It's
I know it is.
sometimes, yeah, because sometimes you don't want to see things. You're fed up with seeing things. And so it's nice to just hear another individual, another human being just talking about things you're very familiar with that are happening around you.
This leads me to the next question. The
Mhm.
digital age. Where do you see radio
It's
comes
already
to?
here, isn't it?
Mm,
It's already here. Radio is digital and it's online. It's on your phone. It's wherever you want it. It's already here.
mhm.
Have you, like I said, once I wanted to relearn Turkish again and familiarize myself with it. And I went to radio and found a Turkish channel and I played it all the time in the car. So that's radio. It's very important. You find out what's happening around the world, not from your own local news, but you go to their radio and listen to it. I don't know. I see it's already out there. It's already digital and everyone's listening. It's not dying. That's important.
Right. All right,
Mm.
guys. This is it. We've come to the end of the interview. But let me tell you, we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg with Nerrin Bamanie. There's so much more to her than meets the ear. I highly recommend tuning into her show and following her on Instagram. Maybe you can give them your account. So,
Yeah. Okay. It's my name. It's Nerrin Bamanie. I think it's also called Good Morning KSA somehow. I think so. It's just Nerrin Bamanie, which is spelled Nerrin. And they can find me on Instagram Live. You can also hear the whole radio on alula.sa. That's a
okay.
website. Alula.sa. You can hear the live shows. They're all the channels, not just Saudi Arabia, even Jeddah and Riyadh, all of them.
Well, that's
Yeah.
where you will find her. She even streams live when she's on air.
Yes.
Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Make sure that
Oh, thank
you
you.
stay connected and stay tuned for more amazing content from Nerrin. Thank you again, Nerrin, for coming on the show. We really had a blast and I hope to talk to you.
Yes, thank you for asking me. It was really nice. Thank you so much.
We had fun.
Yes.